Hey, Adam and Zach, it's Mike from Movie Mike's Movie Podcast. How are you guys?
Hi, Mike from Movies Mike Movie Podcast. Nice to see you.
I am
I
so
love
excited.
I love all your comics.
Oh, I
See
appreciate it.
them
I'm a
all.
huge comic book nerd. I'm a huge fan of your movie. I love movies that affect my personal life. And after I finished watching Bloodlines, I was driving home, and I've never driven home more cautiously. I was paying attention to every red light. When I got out of my car, I was running inside the house because I was so worried that something was going to go wrong. And this movie just has me even freaked out about the things inside my house. So I have to imagine when you guys are making this movie, does it start to affect your mental state of like, I'm getting a little paranoid because everything I'm seeing every day?
It's a mix of both. You're completely paranoid and looking at everything with this weird sort of like, is this going to get me type attitude. But you're also then going, ooh, that's good. I could put that in the film. And so you're kind of like having this kind of anxious, perspective on the world, but it's also your muse, which is an interesting place to be.
I couldn't wear my wedding ring for like 2 years because every time I put it on, it just felt a little bit too tight.
I could tell by watching this movie that you guys went back and rewatched all the movies. Do you start to assemble like this list of rules of like, okay, this is what death can do, this is what death will do?
Yeah, we've probably dived deeper than most people have ever dove into the Final Destination sort of rule book. There's kind of clear things that you see from previous movies that kind of death can or can't do. But we also like built this massive spreadsheet of every different set piece from the previous movies and categorized them, and like exactly how they worked, how many omens each one had, if the audience was aware of certain things, if the characters were aware of certain things, how long they were, and also like how they related to the different types of deaths next to each other. Um, and by doing that huge deep dive, it really gave us a deep understanding of all the different ways, that death can come from people. Often people just think, oh, there's these crazy death sequences, but they're actually quite uniquely different the way that they're structured. Some of them happen very quickly. Some of them, the audience knows all this sorts of stuff and the characters don't. Some of them, the characters know exactly what's going down, but they're trapped. And so like there's a lot of different ways that it works. And we were huge nerds on that to make sure that we kind of had one of each type.
And the producers, Craig Perry and Sheila Taylor, they were also with us, for the whole 3 years we were making this movie, and they've made the other ones as well. So they were also like great sources of wisdom on what how death works. So it was a big collaboration with the whole team.
It's really fun as a filmmaker because death isn't personified in the movie. Most horror films or slasher films have a bad guy or a monster or a shark or whatever. And in this case, it's just the filmmaking that's creating a sense that there's a presence there, that's making a beer bottle look scary or whatever it's doing. And that's so much fun as a filmmaker because it basically makes us death. And so we just had so much fun building all those sequences that way.
Speaking of being a filmmaker, what was the first movie you watched that you saw and thought, man, that is the movie that now makes me want to be a director?
Wow.
I mean, for me, there's sort of two movies that come to mind. One, I saw Jurassic Park when I was 9 years old in theaters, and it was the scariest horror film I've ever seen in my life, and convinced me I was going to die in the theater, and have kind of been chasing that feeling ever since. And then when I was 13, The Matrix came out, and that was when I was making movies, and every movie I made that summer was a ripoff of The Matrix, and that's kind of the movie that made me want to then just the feeling of watching The Matrix and then wanting to just make The Matrix over and over and over again has sort of been something I've been chasing ever since.
For me, it was probably Star Wars, just watching the original trilogy again and again on VHS, plus all the Ewok spin-offs and just like I was the biggest, Star Wars kid growing up, and the magic and epicness of that series was probably an early inspiration.
All great picks. The movie had me just sucked in from the very beginning. It was just a monstrous opening sequence. And I think my favorite performance of the entire movie came in that opening sequence. And it was 71-year-old stunt performer Yvette Ferguson, who has the world record now for being the oldest actor to be set on
Yeah.
fire. Could you tell me about that stunt and how that went down?
Yeah. Well, we had an amazing stunt team. I mean, the stunt coordinators, they're in charge of kind of, helping us pick the stunt people that will do specific gags. So Simon, who's our stunt coordinator, and Dustin Brooks, who is his co-coordinator, assistant coordinator. They know everyone in Vancouver, and they were kind of presenting different options. And they said, what about Yvette here? Like she's a bit on the older side, but would you guys be open to that? And we were like, yes, that's amazing. And Yvette, for her part, she's been a longtime stunt person, but she was so excited to do it because she said, my whole family's been on fire and I've never been on fire. Like, thank you so much for giving me this
Well,
opportunity.
she thought she would never, she thought basically I'm retiring and I never got lit on fire. I never, because doing a full body burn for a stunt person is sort of a rites of passage. It's like they all look forward to having that opportunity because it doesn't happen that often. And so she was so grateful to get that ability. And yeah, she ran like 60 feet entirely on fire. And then what I don't think many people realize is she ran on fire through the whole restaurant and then ran into an actual propane leak that then exploded all around her with a giant fireball of propane. So like not only was she on fire, she
Yes.
she like lit an explosion at the
And
end of running on fire.
they cover themselves with this special gel that has been gone through very different evolution over the years, but the latest version of it was invented basically by our stunt team. This fire protective fire gel that's flammable and also protects the stunt people somehow. Um, and they just won an Oscar, a Sci-Tech Oscar for the fire gel this year. Dustin and Colin won that Oscar for the fire gel that was used in our movie.
That is so amazing. I think my second favorite kill is probably Julia in the garbage truck. And I have just questions about the difference between when to decide to make something with practical effects or when to use CGI. For that scene specifically, how do you decide what are we going to do like here on set and what are we going to do in post-production?
I think our approach is trying to do the practical gag as far as it will go, and then augment it with CG after capturing it. So, in terms of how it's built, it's really collaboration with the team. But for each death, we go, okay, so how would we do this if we were doing this back in the 1980s completely practically? And the team brainstorms and figures it out. For the Julia death in particular, they built this amazing garbage truck rig that had this metal plate with metal rods, rubber tips, so that it could extend into her face and hug the contours of her face, looking like it's pressing in. And then in the computer after, they just replaced the metal rods with a flat metal piece. So it looks like it's truly going into and interacting with her face. And then we also built a makeup effects fake head uh, that was kind of molded. They 3D scanned Anna Laurie, who played Julia, and then built a fake head that we crushed for real. And then they take those two elements, the crushed head and the real Anna Laurie performance, and in the computer kind of meld them together and morph them and stuff like that. So basically getting the practical elements and then using the computer to kind of tie it all together.
My final question is for you, Zach. I was a huge fan of Goosebumps growing up. It was my dream to be on that show someday, but you were
Yeah.
on an episode of Goosebumps. What was your experience like on that show?
For me, it was an incredible dream come true because I was 10 or 11 at the time. So everyone in my grade was reading Goosebumps. That's all we were all doing. And then to be then, it was also my first time as an actor being flown somewhere because I live in Vancouver, but it was shooting in Toronto. And so flying to Toronto to then be in this, incredible kind of thing that you would read about and R.L. Stein being this mythic, person that actually like created all these twisted tales. And the other weird thing is just for whatever reason, because in the season they were kind of running behind, we would shoot all night. They would never like we were shooting nights, even though most of it was inside, and like so it was like living like a vampire for like 2 weeks in Toronto.
So
And
when we climbed the bookcase,
yeah,
so he also had to do his own stunts.
this is in the 90s, things were just a little bit more loose back then. But yeah, the first thing that happens in that episode, if you go watch it, is I'm trying to like climb up a bookcase looking for presents at the top of this bookcase, and then it starts to tip and I jump off and it falls and just like barely crushes me. And we just did that basically. They're just like, yeah, just climb up and then as you're jumping down, we're just gonna push it over. And I was
That
pretty
wouldn't fly today.
I was pretty scared at the time. And I look back going, that was pretty weird that they just let us do that. But
Safety is like so present these days. And
yeah.
even though we did so many things that looked like they killed people on Final Destination, the safety was like incredibly top notch. It's pretty amazing how the team,
Yeah.
you know, keeps everyone safe.
There's probably
during all
no
that.
there's probably
All those
no
fire blasts and everything.
no worse job than head of safety on a Final Destination movie. I can only imagine the anxiety.
Yeah, who knew the set of Goosebumps was more dangerous than you guys said?
Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate the time. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.